In the young couple's bedroom, a true drama unfolds. They are discussing the wife's infidelity and her pregnancy by a close relative with whom she had an affair behind her husband's back. From the outside, it looks ridiculous. A cheap, tasteless soap opera. Unfortunately, failed director Lars is only capable of creating such melodramas, and his career has long been in decline. To cope with the depression caused by his failures, Lars plans to spend the weekend with his wife Lisa, an equally unsuccessful actress who never gets lead roles. But before that, Lars tells all their acquaintances about his wife's strange plans. Supposedly, she loves extreme adventures. Lars also visits his father. The old man has been living in a nursing home for a long time and is ashamed of his son, who never became a real man. Lars warns the elderly Mikkel that they will be staying in his cabin in the woods for a while to get away from the city hustle. Right before the trip, Lars stops by a hardware store. Hammers, a saw, duct tape, and ropes. In short, everything a man might need in a countryside house, especially if he has some mysterious plan. Finally, the director picks up his wife, listens to yet another portion of her complaints and reproaches, and the couple sets off. During the drive, Lisa and Lars are mostly silent, but even when they try to talk, it only makes things worse. Lisa accuses her husband of being a talentless director, blaming him for their hardships and debts. She even scolds him for buying cheap wine, saying it could ruin her short vacation. Upon arriving at the cabin, the couple unpacks, settles in, and plans to spend the entire weekend outdoors. While walking around the house, Lars notices a few odd things, like cereal scattered across the floor, but doesn't pay much attention to it and has no idea that they are not alone in the house. The only thing that unsettles him is the disappearance of his favorite striped sweater. He asks his wife if she's seen it, but Lisa insists it should be in the closet and that he probably just didn't look carefully. The couple spends a cozy evening. Lars cooks a delicious meal, they have dinner at sunset with a view of the lake, and afterward, they lay out their favorite board game. But even in such a relaxed setting, something strange happens between them. They argue over nothing and end up offended by each other. The woman can't even accept her defeat in the game and goes to bed to avoid escalating the conflict. The next morning, Lars goes for a walk in the woods and for some reason fills a bag with stones. His wife watches him from afar, but Lars has no idea that she already knows about his plans and is preparing a counterattack. The bag of stones is left in the family boat, and in its place, Lars takes the bag of supplies from the hardware store. He stashes the duct tape, saw, and ropes in the basement, and armed with the hammer, returns to the house. Secretly, he downs a couple of shots of alcohol and heads toward his wife, hiding the hammer behind his back. Unaware of what's coming, Lisa stands at the wardrobe, flipping through a book. Sneaking up behind her, Lars takes a deep breath and raises the hammer, but he doesn't get the chance to strike. The woman suddenly turns around and zaps her husband with a stun gun. When Lars comes to, his hands are tied and he's strapped to a chair. Across the table sits his wife with a cup of coffee, duct tape, ropes, and a saw. Lisa figures out her husband's plan, but laughs when he admits he wanted to chop her up to get rid of the evidence. She's convinced he would have failed miserably. He's a coward and struggles even to cut meat for a steak. Once she stops laughing, she turns to a more serious question, the motive. She can't understand why Lars would want to do this to her, but the answer is simple. He's known all along that she's been cheating on him, but Lisa confesses that's not the worst sin she's committed. She too had planned to get rid of Lars on this trip, to claim the insurance money and finally pay off all their debts. Her plan was to make it look like they went hunting and she accidentally shot him when she fell with the gun. She had even told her friend about it ahead of time to prepare an alibi and avoid punishment. But Lars starts mocking his wife, reminding her that she's a terrible actress and no one would believe her story. She can't land a role even in cheap soap operas, and there's no way she could fool any detectives. Another argument breaks out between the couple. They accuse each other of lies and indifference, but when Lars sees the gardener Victor standing behind his wife, he grows bolder and tries to keep her attention focused on him. 2 days earlier, Lars had met Victor in the park. The man agreed to help him get rid of Lisa for $500,000, but only on one condition. Everything must be recorded on tape. After Victor hits Lisa on the head with a shovel, the tables turn. Now Lisa is tied to the chair and Victor points a gun at her. But he calms his old acquaintance down, assuring her that Lars will be the one to pull the trigger, while he will simply take care of cleaning up the evidence. Even in this situation, the couple doesn't stop arguing. Lisa reminds her husband that because of his gambling addiction, they're broke and drowning in debt, and that's what brought them to this horrific situation. During the argument, Lisa finds out that Lars promised Victor only $500,000, lying that the insurance payout was just $1 million. This gives the woman a chance to turn the tables. She promises Victor 3 times more, and the gardener switches sides, dreaming of finally becoming truly rich. The couple begins an auction, each offering Victor a bigger share of the money, and the hitman starts to hesitate, unsure which side will be more profitable. Completely confused, the gardener freezes and loses sight of both opponents. Lars takes advantage of the pause and wrests the shotgun from Victor's hands. A scuffle breaks out, with the two men wrestling on the floor, trying to seize the weapon. Victor, never the brightest, decides to grab the barrel with his bare hand just as Lars pulls the trigger. Now Lisa and Lars team up to help Victor, who's lost his fingers and is running around the house in panic. The couple forgets all about what they were planning to do to each other, and Lisa begs her husband to take Victor to a hospital or at least stop the heavy bleeding from his hand. Apparently, Lars isn't very bright either. Hearing the words, "Stop him," he shoots at Victor's back, and the guy comes to a halt, letting out his last breath right at the door. Only then does Lars realize that he was supposed to stop the bleeding, not Victor himself. To put an end to this nightmare, Lars decides to finish off his wife and forget everything that happened. He aims the shotgun at her, with no regret in his eyes. But once again, his plan fails. The shotgun is out of ammo. As Lars stares at the gun in confusion, his wife finds a knife on the floor and puts it to use. A second later, the man screams in pain and clutches his leg, writhing in agony. The couple launches into a full-blown brawl, turning into Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They mercilessly use anything they can get their hands on, turning the cozy cabin into a battlefield. Fleeing from her husband, Lisa runs upstairs and tries to hide in the bedroom. But Lars finds her there too, and the couple once again fights for their lives, struggling over the shotgun. Accidentally, Lisa pulls the trigger, firing a shot into the wooden ceiling, and a terrifying male scream echoes from the attic, followed by heavy footsteps and the creak of the shattered ceiling. Seconds later, the wooden panels collapse onto the floor, and along with them, a group of mysterious strangers emerge into the room, clearly happy to leave their hiding place. But Lisa and Lars don't see them. Both fall unconscious under the debris. 3 days earlier, these three, Roy, Petter, and Dave, escaped from prison. They wandered through the forest for a long time, and when they were completely exhausted and starving, they stumbled upon an empty forest cabin where they managed to hide. They also found some food and clean clothes, like Lars's warm striped sweater, which he never managed to locate. When Lisa and Lars arrived at the house, the fugitives had to hide in the attic. But they weren't having an easy time. Not only were they stuck there for a whole day without food or water, but Roy also made things worse. Ignoring the others, the big guy ate some berries in the forest, which gave him diarrhea, forcing the others to endure the awful stench. To wake Lisa and Lars, who had been tied to chairs by the intruders, Petter pours beer on them. As the couple opens their eyes, they realize they're in the basement, and it's clear that these people mean them no good. Petter, the gang's leader, tells the hostages that he saw them get rid of Victor, but he doesn't care about that. What he really wants is money, and he demands that the homeowners give him everything they have. He also wants his guys to relieve the tension they've built up in prison. Lisa immediately understands what he means, and when Dave unzips his pants, she has a hysterical breakdown. Lars refuses to protect his wife and even admits that he doesn't care what happens to her. But things take a darker turn. It turns out that Dave isn't into women, and Lars is going to take her place. Roy helps his buddy hold Lars down as they lay him out on the pool table. Lars manages to break free and falls to his knees in front of Petter. He begs the man for mercy, offering to kiss his boots, which he does without hesitation. Petter enjoys the display, but still hands Lars back to the others so Dave can finally get what he wants. Lisa's patience runs out. She can't watch her husband being tortured and begs the criminals to stop. In exchange, Lisa promises to give them $150,000 from her bank account, but they'll have to wait until morning so she can withdraw the money and buy their freedom. Petter hesitates for a moment, but greed wins. He orders the others to release Lars and tie both hostages securely to the support beams. Night falls. While the hostages sit on the cold basement floor, the criminals enjoy the cozy living room, have dinner, and watch TV. Dave finally pulls the buckshot out of Roy's butt, a souvenir from the shotgun. Only now does Lisa begin to understand how far they've fallen. After so many years together, they betrayed each other, even though they once shared a strong love. But she knows it no longer matters. They have no chance of surviving anyway, since the criminals will likely get rid of them soon. Unlike his wife, Lars turns out to be more optimistic. He tries to move and manages to reach the pool table with his foot. To Lisa's surprise, Lars starts shouting, calling out for the criminals, hoping to talk to one of them. Roy shows up in response, and when Lars says he urgently needs to use the bathroom, the thug is surprisingly understanding. He's convinced that such a weakling couldn't possibly escape, so he lets the guy go in and even closes the door. While Lars relieves himself, Roy sits next to Lisa to discuss what happened earlier. He's clearly upset that Petter didn't let him touch the girl. She could have at least given him something to look at. Lisa refuses the charming offer, and at that moment, Lars emerges from the bathroom. Roy notices that the hostage is missing one sock, but the dumb brute is so slow to process it that he doesn't react in time. Lars attacks him with a sock full of billiard balls. Lisa hopes Lars will untie her, but once again, he does something strange. He silently walks away, leaving his wife behind. Still, Lisa manages to escape. She steals Roy's knife and cuts the rope around her wrists. Petter starts to suspect something's wrong, but Lisa manages to slip past him. She runs toward the cars in the yard, but none of them have keys. So she decides to wait until the criminals head out looking for her, planning to sneak back into the house and grab the boat keys. The plan works. Petter and Dave find Roy, help him come to his senses, and set out on a hunt to retrieve their hostages. They scour every inch of the area, hoping to track them down. But meanwhile, Lisa sneaks back into the house. She searches everywhere, but all the drawers and cupboards are empty. Suddenly, she thinks to check inside the sugar jar, and there they are, the keys. With a sigh of relief, Lisa prepares to run, but behind her, Roy's voice breaks the silence. He wants to know what she's so happy about. This time, Roy acts extremely harshly. He shoves Lisa aside and points the rifle at her, promising to take revenge on the girl for what her husband did. Lisa notices Lars appearing on the staircase. To buy her husband a little time, she uses every feminine trick she knows to distract Roy. She starts flirting with the criminal, promises him they'll have a good time together, and even confesses that she wants to join their gang so they'll never be apart again. Lars fails to stay unnoticed. The billiard balls fall and make a loud clattering sound. He has no choice but to engage Roy in a hand-to-hand fight, and Lisa joins her husband in the struggle. The couple does everything they can to bring Roy down, but he seems practically immortal. A broken bottle doesn't stop him, nor does the degreaser Lisa grabs when he shoves her into a cabinet. Somehow, he manages to break free and counterattack every time. At one point, Roy even wraps a cord around Lisa's neck and watches as she begins to lose consciousness. This time, Lars doesn't abandon his wife. He manages to reach the rifle and decorates the kitchen walls with Roy's modest brains. Hearing the loud bangs from afar, Petter and Dave return to the house and find their friend's body. The gang leader takes it calmly, but Dave is deeply upset. He mourns Roy and doesn't understand why Lisa and Lars acted so brutally. Meanwhile, the homeowners fail to escape. They head upstairs and hide in a closet to catch their breath and figure out their next move. Lars apologizes to his wife and admits his mistakes. He believes everything that's happened is his fault and that he must make things right and save Lisa. He hands her the keys to the boat and asks her to run to the dock as soon as she gets the chance. Petter searches the rooms and finds the fugitive's hiding spot. He flings open the closet doors, but Lars is the first to strike. Lisa fulfills her husband's request. She bolts from the room and runs into the forest. In the doorway, she collides with Dave, but the criminal is knocked out from the impact, and Lars manages to grab his wife so they can continue fleeing. Sadly, even this stroke of luck doesn't save them. Hearing the noise, Petter jumps down from a window, and all three of them end up on the ground. By that time, Dave regains consciousness too and helps his accomplice. Even though Lars drives a rake into Petter, the brute doesn't weaken. He's ready to get rid of the pesky hostages. While Dave restrains Lisa, the wounded Petter lifts Lars with one hand and drags him toward the lawnmower. No, the brute isn't planning to tidy up the yard. He just wants to shred Lars into pieces so he'll stop interfering with his plan to get money from Lisa. The criminal dreams of adding a new method to his collection. He's never killed anyone with a lawnmower before, and it looks like this time it'll happen. He almost manages to press Lars' face to the buzzing blades. But something unexpected happens. Petter hears the sound of an approaching car. He has to let go of Lars to see who else has come to the cabin in the woods. He steps onto the road and is instantly run over by a blue car driven by none other than Old Man Mikkel. 6 hours earlier, Lars's elderly neighbor Hans is for some reason driving around the area in his tiny electric car. The observant old man notices that the house lights are on and several cars are parked nearby. Thinking that Mikkel's son is throwing an illegal party, Hans immediately heads home to call his friend. Old man Hans tells his friend the whole story of his journey and almost forgets why he called in the first place. But just in time, he remembers the point of the conversation and shares the strange events that occurred in the house. Mikkel tries to call his son, but the phone is turned off. That's when the old man decides to take action. He escapes from his hospital room, assaults a guard, and steals the keys to his car. Along the way, Mikkel has to stop several times at gas stations, and his anger builds up so much that he literally speeds into the yard, not even checking what's in front of him. That's exactly how he manages to save his son from the lawnmower and run over Petter. Looking around, Mikkel spots Dave, who is still holding Lisa with a blade to her throat. The old man, a Vietnam veteran, doesn't lose his cool. He skillfully grabs a rifle from the ground and shoots the criminal in the knee, making a clean hole right through it. Retribution comes instantly. Lars doesn't have time to warn his father, and Petter, somehow still alive, stabs the old man in the back. While doing so, he promises to destroy his son and daughter-in-law right in front of him. Wounded but not defeated, Mikkel refuses to give up. He sinks his teeth into Petter's nose, but the criminal proves stronger. He fulfills his dream and throws the old man onto the lawnmower. Lisa tries to save herself and her husband, realizing there's no way to help the old man anymore. She and Lars jump into the car and drive off, but Petter grabs the rifle and stops the car the same way Lars had recently stopped Victor. After checking Dave's leg, Petter refuses to help him. Instead, he heads toward the car, determined to drag out the criminals and get revenge for his ruined plans after escaping from prison. Once again, the hostages manage to outsmart Petter. The car is empty. Meanwhile, Lisa runs full speed toward the boat, but she can't escape. The fuel tank is empty. Struggling to get into the house, Dave finds clean towels and scissors to bandage his wounded leg. But in his rush, he accidentally knocks over a jar of salt, spilling it all into his wound and causing excruciating pain. Fighting through the agony, Dave reaches the living room and tries to numb the injury. He finds a bottle that helps ease the pain and treat the wound. Old man Mikkel is also suffering. He slowly rises from the lawnmower and realizes that the clock has begun counting down the final minutes of his life. Dave ties a tight bandage around his leg and sighs in relief. Finally, the pain is fading and things might get better. But suddenly, Lars appears right beside him and quickly robs him of any hope of recovery. He twists Dave's leg the wrong way and for the first time tells the guy he picked the wrong sweater. Meanwhile, Lisa looks around to make sure no one is nearby and runs to the garage for the gas cans. But she has no idea that Petter has been following her the whole time. Spotting a bucket of fishing gear in the corner, she slams it over Petter's head, leaving several sharp hooks embedded in his face. But even that doesn't stop the fugitive. He wants her money, and to make sure she doesn't escape again, he drags her with him. Lars reminds Dave of what happened in the attic, and to make sure he never again gets the idea to lay someone out on a pool table, he robs him of his most valuable asset, his manhood. Dave's scream echoes through the woods and wakes Mikkel. The old man has managed to crawl to the hammock where he spent many years watching sunrises and sunsets. That's where a tired Lars finds him, and the old man gets to speak with his son in the final moments of his life. They used to fight often about Lars's ridiculous film projects, but now Mikkel says he's proud of his son and sees him as a real man. Then he looks at the rising sun one last time and closes his eyes. After saying goodbye to his father, Lars runs to the dock and sees the boat with Petter and Lisa already drifting away from the shore. He manages to grab the end of the rope attached to the vessel and falls into the water, struggling to catch up to the fleeing criminal. Lisa spots her husband and tries to distract Petter, hoping to give Lars a chance to catch up. She begins talking to the criminal, trying to stall him, reminding him about the friend he left behind in the house. But none of that matters to the old man anymore. All he can think about now is the money. Lars manages to climb aboard the boat, and for what feels like the 1,000th time, another fight breaks out between the two men. Petter truly seems invincible. Neither punches nor the fishing lures ripped from his face seem to have any effect on him. The old man is somehow able to fend off attacks from both Lars and Lisa simultaneously, and no matter how hard the couple fights, the criminal is always stronger. Even the fire extinguisher doesn't help. Lisa empties the entire contents of the canister directly into Petter's face, spraying him with the full blast of gas. But he remains standing, unmoved, and retains all his strength. While Petter is busy handling Lars, trying to finish him off, Lisa notices a flare gun. That's it! Now she's sure she can finally destroy the criminal. Or maybe not. Standing very close to her target, Lisa fires the flare. The rocket shoots out of the barrel and flies past Petter, missing him completely. It doesn't even graze him. At that moment, even the criminal himself is baffled. He simply cannot comprehend how it's possible to miss at such close range. But the fight isn't over. Lars re-enters the struggle. While Petter is still laughing at Lisa's failed shot, Lars grabs the man's arm and forcefully pushes it down toward the boat's propeller. It's unclear how Lars managed to avoid being shredded by this same propeller when he climbed aboard earlier, but now it does its job perfectly, slicing through Petter's thick arm and leaving behind a crimson trail in the water outside the boat. Petter truly is an extraordinary man. Even with only one arm left, his other having just been severed by the boat's propeller, he somehow manages to grab hold of Lars again. Despite the severe injury, he continues to fight, refusing to give up on either his life or the fortune he still believes he can obtain. But then Lisa finds a bag filled with stones. These are not just any stones, but the ones Lars had been carefully collecting specifically for her, with love and intention. She takes the bag, slips its strap over Petter's neck, and without hesitation, sends him over the side of the boat into the water. This time, there's no miracle. Lars had chosen good, heavy stones, and they do exactly what they were meant to do. The weight drags Petter down instantly, pulling him below the surface in a matter of seconds. The scene that unfolds is eerily reminiscent of a moment from The Terminator, a cold, silent sinking into the depths, final and inescapable. But fate throws the couple one more test. The rope tied to the bag tugs Lars with it, and Lisa is faced with a choice: save him or let go of the man who did all this for her. She spends a few seconds deciding, then summons the last of her strength and hauls Lars back into the boat. Safe at last, the couple embraces tightly, deciding they've had enough danger and suffering for a lifetime. The couple returns home, calls the police, and while waiting, sits down to talk about what comes next. They survived, they reconciled, but the debts and poverty haven't gone anywhere. Once they're back in the city, their old problems will be waiting for them. If one of them had died, the other would have gotten the insurance payout, but now there's no other way. Or is there? When the police arrive, the couple gathers reporters around and begins giving interviews. From that moment on, they become true celebrities. Invited onto talk shows, featured in newspapers for taking down dangerous fugitives, and hailed as real heroes. Of course, it's not all for free. Lisa and Lars managed to make enough money to pay off their debts and even shoot a new film. A movie about how a married couple faced off against a gang of criminals in their remote forest cabin. And naturally, the film became a bestseller, thanks to its brave leading lady and its talented director.